More than a quarter of head injuries in New Zealand are sports related. The professionals are supported by top doctors, but hits like this one can finish careers and moreover end lives. 9 months after this incident, Chiefs prop Ben Afiaki is still suffering and may never take to the field again.
Still the same symptoms, nausea, and when I concentrate, get a bit, foggy, but otherwise I think they're getting less and less.
It is, of course, a huge issue and one that ACC now wants to bring under control with a new set of concussion guidelines across all sports. That's being released later today. Dr. John Mayhew's the Warriors medical officer and also spent 16 years with the All Blacks, so you would have seen more than a few concussions in your time. What do you make of these, trans sport guidelines with regard to concussion?
I think they're very good. I think it's sort of generalising what we're doing in the professional sports in rugby and rugby league and making them available for the other sports which have perhaps lesser medical infrastructure. And you've got to remember most head injuries occur in sportsmen who are non-professional, the amateur game, children, schoolboys and things like that. So I think they're very good guidelines. They're based on a lot of common sense and best practice, and it's what rugby and rugby league have been doing. It is making it available in a comprehensive form to other sports.
And that is a difference, isn't it? I mean, when you look at professional sport, there's doctors everywhere, professionals everywhere that can make instant decisions with a lot of informed knowledge, whereas, say, you look at schoolboy rugby and people won't necessarily know what the best course of action is. So they're set in place exactly what you should do, the first of which being get off the field. Absolutely.
I think the diagnosis is the important thing, and if you're concerned that someone has sustained a head injury, take them away from the play and then get medical advice. So do the common, the easy things first, and unfortunately doctors can get it wrong. We saw the Sam Burgess episode earlier on, but I think these guidelines are very good. They give a lot of guidance to coaches and to parents to make sure their players are safe.
And also, I guess, it sort of debunks a lot of myths. One that I didn't realise was you could actually have a concussion without being knocked out, not being unconscious at all. And a lot of people probably don't know those basics.
Absolutely. I mean, only about 10 to 20% of all concussions cause loss of consciousness. So we find, I see in my practice sometimes people who have a head injury, they come and see me on a Monday morning, and you take a history and you find they weren't knocked out, but the other players say, well, they're a bit odd for a couple of minutes and they got a bang on the head, and then we can put the necessary procedures in place to assess those properly.
And of course, when we talk about concussions and sport, most people do instantly think of, say, rugby or league, but it actually is far more widespread than that, isn't it?
Oh, it could happen in the playground, mountain biking, hockey, cricket, any sport, anything which causes a blow to the head. And obviously we see it in other traumatic events as well, but in sport it can occur in any sport. It could occur in diving when you hit the diving board, so we need to be aware of it, and this increases the awareness.
And it also points out the fact that headgear is pretty much useless, isn't it?
It's absolutely useless. The typical rugby sporting headgear makes your ears look pretty and perhaps prevents cuts, but it doesn't actually reduce the incidence or help treat concussion.
But there is the perception that it does act as safety gear, isn't it?
Yeah, there was a worry for a while that people wearing headgear may think they were sort of invulnerable and actually, play harder because of that. That may or may not be true, but certainly the rugby headgear is of no benefit in preventing head injury.
The other troubling thing with head injuries, of course, and concussions is there's no hard and fast rule about how many concussions you can possibly have before you call it quits altogether, is there?
Yeah, and exactly, and I think you saw that clip before on Ben Afiaki. I mean, he's been well looked after by the Chiefs medical staff, and he's had a couple of head injuries, and he may or may not be able to play rugby again. Some people can have 20 and it may be fine. Some may have one and they can't play.
Richie's had quite a few, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. Yeah, Kieran Reid and people like that, and they've been well looked after and monitored. And there are testing facilities available now which can decide is it safe to carry on or not.
Oh well, it's good to see that they've gone sports wide across the nation. Dr. John Mayhew, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.